we have any citizen comments?
Nothing was called in prior to the meeting.
All right. How about approval of the July 13 minutes?
I move that we approve the July 13 minutes as written.
Second?
Any comment or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. How about presentation from Personnel Gauge on the financial report?
You didn't even just not even awake yet, really. Hi, everybody. Is it okay if I? Yes.
Please, yep.
Yeah, just make sure you introduce yourself with your name so that you're on the record.
Okay.
Dawn Aliberti with Fresno Gauge. I performed the agreed upon procedure of the 2022 BID financial activity. The Fresno Gauge, we performed the agreed upon procedures based on procedures outlined in the engagement letter. Brenda, you indicated that you provided everybody with the draft.
Yes, it's in the packet.
Okay. And so basically on page 6 is kind of is the outline of the procedures that with the detail of what was agreed upon to be performed. We were provided just kind of, I don't, how much detail you guys want, so I'll just kind of be fairly summarized, and then if you have questions, you can let me know. But we were provided the requested information or based on the procedures in a, to do the procedures outlined, they were organized in a binder. This was the binder that Brenda provided us with all the information monthly, so it was very organized and put together, and any additional information that was requested, either email or by phone, was provided in a timely fashion to us. So there wasn't a lag with that information, and the information was organized. Based on the procedures that we were asked to perform, I'll just kind of summarize some of the results. Bank results can kind of be identified on page 5 of the packet. The BID special assessments are separated from the beautiful downtown Lewiston bank account, so there is a separate bank account where the activity for the BID is being handled. At December 31st, 2022, the balance in that bank account was $77,129.61. So that was the balance at that given point. BID opened an account with P1FCU in March of 2022. The BID, prior to opening a P1FCU account, used Wells Fargo. That account was closed in December of 2022. The funds were moved primarily down to about $90 in September of 2022. But basically, there wasn't a whole lot of activity in that Wells Fargo account from the point that the P1FCU account was opened in March. There was a little bit here and there, but not that P1FCU account was one being used. The funds were transferred in September. What was remaining in the Wells Fargo account was transferred to the P1FCU account. And those bank statements are reconciled timely. When I asked Brenda for the bank reconciliations, they were kind of mixed with the beautiful downtown Lewiston, and so for that I didn't want to see any of that information, so she had to quickly separate those and make sure it was in a packet, so that was provided in a timely fashion. Regarding funds that were expended, the results of that can be found on page 6, and I know there's lots of pages to the packet, but that's just, the breakdown of what went on in the BID. During the year, $155,416.34 was expended on behalf of, and this is on a cash basis, so this is not was outstanding. Supporting documentation was presented, so the invoices and whatever would back up any of those expenses was provided to us with this information. The expenditures appeared to be for the purpose that is allowed under the agreement. There was project hours that were paid at the proper rate, even though originally they were calculated at the higher rate. There was some pages in the documentation that indicated it was to be paid at $45 an hour, but really the rate is 40, but they paid the correct amount. So it wasn't like, the calculations were done one way, but it actually got paid when we looked at it. What really got paid for that was at the proper amount. Over time, there was some overpayments that the BID had received, but they paid those back in November of 2022. So essentially, based on the work that we performed, looked like the documentation was in order, the bank activity seemed appropriate, and the expenditures as well seemed appropriate. There were no expenditures that required to fall within, bid process or anything like that required us to. Do you have any questions? I know that's very summarized, but.
Yeah, can we talk about the, I'm sure you said it, I just didn't catch it.
Sure.
You were talking about the hourly of 40 versus 45, but that
Yes,
they did pay out the right amount, it
yes,
just
they
wasn't
paid out the correct,
recorded.
yes,
Alright.
and recorded correctly. I think, it's been a month since I looked at this, but I believe back in 2021, there was an error in where the amount was paid out at the higher rate. And then we identified that. So by the time 21 was finished and some of the 22 hours hadn't been paid at that time, so the correction, I think, was made and the correct amount.
Like it caught up with itself, kind of, or?
Yes, well, it was caught before it was paid. Does that make
Okay.
sense? So the schedule, like there was a work paper that had the hours, and then it said $45 an hour, and it should have been X number of dollars. But when we went and looked to see what amount was actually paid, through the bank and the checks and all that, it was actually at the rate of $40 an hour.
So the system probably had the right amount, somebody writing it down had.
Yeah, so whatever the calculation, but I think my thought is maybe the calculation was being done. And then, oh, by the way, we did the 21 assessment and said, oh, that's wrong, and then maybe I don't know what really happened, but went back and, oh, we need to make sure we pay the right amount.
Yeah, so in 21, and if the board would like this information, I can pull those minutes and the records, bring it back at the next meeting. But in 21, under Carolyn Honeycutt, there had been a period of time where hours were billed at that 45 rate, and some of those hours were paid at the 45 rate.
Yeah.
So there was an overpayment.
Yeah.
But then going into 22, we had like a 6-month period where the board didn't pay anything.
Yeah.
Remember, and we caught everything back up, and we had that 100-page packet last December. So at that time, the difference, everything was recalculated, and so what was paid for hourly was based on that 40, and so the overpayment was just wrapped into that, and so it reduced the amount that was paid total so that all hours were then reflective of the $40 rate rather than a $45 rate.
I just ran into this myself.
Yeah,
Where
I
the
guess-
system's correct, but what we wrote somewhere is.
Yeah, it when it got down to the end of the year, everything was okay. And because you didn't pay anything for that amount of time, how the calculation
Worked
was
out.
noted at 45, but when it came down, I guess that's what I'm saying, we presented and it was wrong, and then it got caught back up, and then that, when I indicated the payback, well, the payback occurred at that time too, that November, December timeframe.
I just kind of wanted it explained, because it is one thing that stands out when you're looking at all of this. so.
Sure. Anyway, I just,
Thank you.
I almost need a little chart, a little.
I know, right?
Little draw pictures, and even though it'd be little stick figures, because I'm an accountant, not a art person.
Awesome, thank you.
Yes, any other questions? Yep, so you have a draft on you, or in here, and so if everything is fine, we'll just go ahead and finalize that and send an electronic copy to Brenda. And if printed, let me know, anything more formalized in a, bound copy or whatever, we can as well. I think we've just done a electronic final. Anything else?
Any other questions? We need a motion though, right, to approve her report?
Yes, if you guys don't have any other questions, then someone would need to make a motion to approve the draft so that the finalized report is submitted to us.
I move that we accept the draft from President Gage as presented.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hey, thank you so much, Dawn.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks. Paul, if you have any other questions.
I'm gonna excuse myself, yeah.
Awesome, okay, we will move on to the financials. Brenda, you are up.
It's gonna be a doozy. Okay, so included is the bank statement. I went through, last meeting, we had a few line items from the previous bank statement that were missing off the general ledger, so I went through, and you'll see this further in your packet as well, of all the expenditures paid out of the BID got put into the ledger, or just double checked. There were only 2, I believe, that were missing in there. So those are reflected in there. All the line items, 4 line items listed on, excuse me, this bank statement, are towards the bottom of the ledger. The deposits for the assessments, the purchase of the garbage receptacles and liners, the charge for QuickBooks, and then the dividend deposit. And then the second page is a copy of the deposit slip for that amount.
Normally what we see, because for some reason it makes more sense to me today.
Yes, it is.
Sure.
Yes.
I have a question, and maybe this was discussed at last meeting, and since I was not present, maybe I'm just missing it. Under the review of invoices, we have a reimbursement to BDL for June QuickBooks and $85, and then a prepaid for July, August, and September for QuickBooks. But on the bank statement for July, there is a ACH charge for QuickBooks. So would that be a true reimbursement if it's already coming out of the BID account?
So that doesn't actually get reimbursed. It's not included in any of the check payments because it comes directly from the BID. Same as any of the checks that are written from the BID aren't included in the reimbursement to BDL.
Okay, but it's listed as an invoice being reimbursed to BDL.
On last month's,
No, on this month's agenda. The agenda that you had sent me says Intuit QuickBooks, under number 3, $85 for June, under item D, review of invoices being reimbursed to BDL, and then number 4, Intuit QuickBooks for $255 as a prepaid for July, August, and September.
so last meeting, we discussed, because of how the QuickBooks statement date is, that it would need to be, so this is just a review of last month's, just to go over it one more time because there were so many
We needed to break it
more
out
questions.
because of the
Yeah.
way that the months land on the invoice versus what we had approved before. And so this was our way of getting it back into sync with approving it quarterly.
So this is just a
Okay,
review
but
of
so
what
maybe
we
it's
went
just
over.
in the wrong place, and it shouldn't have been put under reimbursement to BDL.
Correct. Should have been review probably.
Under the review.
How can we fix that on the agenda, or does that matter?
I would,
So it should have been under C, of paid invoices by BID funds. Versus D, being reimbursed, so Neon would also be reimbursed
correct,
as well.
and unfortunately, we don't have a line item on the agenda to amend the agenda in the meeting minutes. I believe that, when we review those items, the motion can just be to approve the invoice and not to approve a reimbursement.
Okay.
And then in the future, I will make sure to add to the agenda, a line item allowing for amendments. We do that with other commissions, so that might be the best way.
That would be good.
So is that a motion to approve and table then?
No, it'd just be a motion to approve, but not to reimburse BDL, just to approve the expenditure out of the BID account. So we're just gonna change how we're going to word that motion when we get to that particular item.
Okay.
Because it's not a reimbursement, it's already coming directly out of the BID account.
Yeah, like, I guess my question was, can we approve a portion of that line and then table the other one till the next meeting?
I don't even know that needs to be
Okay.
tabled. It's-
Okay, I didn't know.
It's approving instead of reimbursing.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So we're just,
They approved these all last time,
Yes.
Yes.
so we're approving them again?
that was kind of my.
It should be in the review.
Right, it was asked to be reviewed again with additional details separated between just the review of ones that have been paid versus ones that are being like a prepay. Yeah,
Just to make it make more sense to everybody, and instead of going back and forth between the two, it was getting confusing.
And Madam Chair, there's no, on that one for 728, there's no dollar amount listed in the QuickBooks online BID bookkeeping charge.
or which one?
Cost listed in the ledger. It's listed on there, the 728, but there's no dollar amount listed in it.
Oh, you're correct, yeah, it's not listed. It does have the line item and it has the associated, ACH number.
Yeah, it has the number, but it doesn't have a dollar amount. Numbers off a little.
Yeah, third from the bottom on the ledger.
There's another.
Okay.
Sure it's
Somebody wanna take a stab at a motion here?
Well,
Well, we're not
mean-
quite there yet, right?
We're on the bank statement.
Oh, so we just need to approve the bank statement.
Maybe you do it, Tammy.
Okay, so I make a motion to approve the bank statement, adding the $85 charge, right? For the Intuit QuickBooks on 728.
Have a motion.
I will second that motion.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
you need to vote.
Okay, let's move on to review of the tabled invoices. So these are the ones last month that we talked about.
yes.
So on the administrative costs, Brenda asked me to provide a copy of the administration agreement with the city of Lewiston. So I provided a copy of the entire agreement, and then you'll see on the fourth page of it, I highlighted the portion that specifically calls out the city administration, where we do the billing and collect the funds for the assessment and the payment that the BID makes to the city for doing that work for you guys.
I get through all those pages to
Right,
get
there's a lot.
That's the
Yeah.
only
So it's like,
tough
but if
part
you just
doing
give it
this
like,
way.
it doesn't make as much sense if it's out of context, so I felt like it was better to provide the entire agreement rather than just a singular page. And then that also gives you, like, if you had a question about what that pays for, then it goes down to duties of the city and actually talks about the collection of the assessment.
Okay,
So we skipped
we're
to
on
administrative
the-
costs.
yeah,
Where was review of
we're on review of tabled invoices.
I didn't see
So
it.
that would be,
Yeah, so number
Which
one
is
was administrative
One,
costs.
2, and 3.
Oh,
oh, I see what you did,
okay, there we go.
missing my indentation.
Is there a way to actually indent the 1,
That's
2,
what-
and 3 so it can be separated? Because right now it just looks like a
It's all
one.
the same.
'Cause
There
everything
is
was-
not, because that's a preset,
Oh,
this one is a preset thing that we don't have any control over, it's from the civic
Okay.
clerk.
Okay.
We wish there was.
Yeah, that's odd.
it just
It would
makes
make it a lot
wildly
easier for us.
confusing.
They all look the same.
Yeah,
Yes, okay, so we were,
sorry.
on the administrative,
First
the
one.
2023 administrative costs invoice for $7,000.
Yes, page 29.
The 23 administrative costs invoice.
Second that motion.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, let's move on to the check. 259, or 2519
Yes.
to BDO.
So this one was one that you guys had asked for more of a breakdown of what was included in the check. So I went through the first page that's just the spreadsheet. Make sure everyone has gotten to that, so we're all looking at the same thing.
Page
That's it.
48.
Yeah, I found it, just as you
There.
said.
So this one has what was actually approved on 6/8, which was the total of $5,000 for Sound Downtown. And then I put a just kind of a breakdown for the 4 different areas that were approved, what was spent within those areas and the remaining budget. The check that was issued, 2519, included the first list of items based off of previous invoices for radio and the Tribune. And then the next set of billed items is what was actually billed after the fact. One thing that is noted on there is there was an incorrect invoice for Hell's Canyon Apparel, so I received, I think, 6 invoices at the same time and saw shirts on one and just put it into the pile. And those were actually separate, not a BID item, so that invoice was corrected from the 2312 quote to quote number 2336. That was paid from BID funds directly, so would not be reimbursed. Another one was an invoice from Hobson Vine for Sound Downtown bands, and that was not supposed to be included. It was only for the Vine 46 giveaways that were approved. Saying so that was taken out as well. And then in addition was all the Facebook, the Meta advertising for Sound Downtown, the actual charge for McVeigh Entertainment. The Tribune has been very generous and offered to match our dollars to create the same amount of coverage. So normally we would spend roughly $2,200, and they were able to give us a lot more ads in daily news, Sunday paper, Inland 360, and then all the digital formats of those for $675 instead. So the estimated starting budget obviously was a lot less. And then we included the promotional products for Sound Downtown as well as the posters. So the balance actually came out to $1,605.17, which would have a balance of $1,851.63. Taking out the items that are not BID, in that total, the $10.56 from the quote that was paid directly from the BID account is not calculated in there. And so the total amount being reimbursed back to the BID would be the $19.76.73. So part of, I believe it was our May meeting, is talking about bringing invoices for pre-approval versus having them paid and then pay them afterwards. That seems to be even more difficult than to just present, have an actual, this is what we're wanting to do for whatever event or a work plan item, and then present the invoices, have EDL pay for them, and then have the board choose to either reimburse or not. Trying to create a budget of, this could be what it is, obviously turns into this, and it's wildly confusing. And since I'm kind of the only one right now, we will have a work scholar here in a couple weeks to kind of help have a second set of eyes on all of this. So I think going back to or seemed to be a lot more clear, bringing invoices and saying, yes, the BID wants to pay for this, or you know what, we'll pay 50% or none, is a lot easier than to try to estimate what should be paid ahead of time. Invoices are about a 45-day lag on that.
Yes, that makes sense. I don't know how it's going to work, though. I'm trying to wrap my head around, so it's like asking for forgiveness, right? Is
Well-
what that process was like, and we were trying to get away from asking for forgiveness and actually getting permission.
Well, we had talked previously, and I had created that project sheet for each like event or project or whatever. I would like to see us actually use that.
Yeah, I have not seen one of those since day one.
I would like to see us actually use that, and then that way, that can kind of be the ticker, because each of those projects should come out of one of the 4 areas. So the board should be approving projects, each of the areas has a total budget. So rather than trying to determine individual budgets, I think you do a project, you can do it to completion, and then you see what you have left in your budget. And if it's something where the project ends up taking a lot more budget than maybe the board assumed or estimated or whatever, then the board needs to look more closely, I think, at the different projects that are being presented or the different projects that they are deciding on. But I feel like the point of coming up with that project sheet was to make it easier and have everything go together, and I still don't think we're quite there. I feel like we're still kind of scattered with reviewing invoices and prepaying and not prepaying, and what comes out of the account, what doesn't come out of the account.
The project sheets were to make sure we knew what was going on and what we were working on. And so it is a little confusing, or a lot confusing for everyone, I think, to approve things not really knowing what did they go to? What did we agree to budget for this? Did we agree to do $2,000 for the planters? Did we, what did we agree for? And then when you ask for it afterwards, the problem is we don't have an opportunity to remind you, get a BID sponsorship on that, or, something, like how are we getting noticed? So that the ratepayers realize that we're doing something.
Right.
Like right now, I imagine a folder, a binder with the worksheet projects in there. And behind that worksheet for that project is a copy of every invoice and everything that's been going on with it. None of us can see what exact projects we're working on right now. There's no way to know that. But a worksheet that is followed that says, okay, and then on this date we did this, on this date we did that, I think would really help. Even if it's not exactly that worksheet, but it's a piece of paper that has the title of what the project is, and then a list of what's going on and what has happened. A timeline even, something. What did we approve and on this
Every
project?
project should have a binder, and it should have checks and balances in that binder for that project.
It's just, so things are there, like she knows what's going on, but we don't at a snapshot, I feel like. And that was what my thought process was with the worksheets, to help out.
So we're discussion item. So right now, we're really just looking at the budget for Sound Downtown. So what we're saying is that worksheet or that project sheet would be Sound Downtown 2023.
Yep. And maybe even what parts of Sound Downtown we're participating in. You know, the awning, the lights, whatever sound, whatever it is. Because maybe we don't have a part of certain things, or the whole thing is just certain parts. But we don't know right now, like if we
Well,
were
and
to.
even in that particular case, like the awning and the extra seating and those things were not Sound Downtown projects. Those were neighborhood improvements for Brackenbury Square, so those are separate. So you would see a separate sheet for, you know, where are we at with the ordering of those and what do they cost and when do they arrive and when will they be installed and that kind of stuff. And then Sound Downtown as the event
It's a separate
is its
project.
own project sheet with, here are, I mean, and Brenda went over this when she presented it, I think in May, it needs to be on that sheet, and then that sheet would come back every single time with, here's our next piece, right?
Honestly, if you sent that to us, it'd be way easier to scroll to the project and then see the invoices under it. Scroll to the project, see the invoices under it. It would be a little easier.
I agree.
Just continuing
Facts and habits and where we're at.
It would also make it easier for us to talk to the public about what's going on, or the ratepayers about what's going on the street. It'd be easier to show too.
Yeah, for each project, and I think that's why the board came up with, that project sheet, and you guys provided all the input. That last year, when I made that for you?
So the last one that was used was in March with all the projects in there for this year.
We
With those project
revise
sheets.
that, or like update those for the next meeting and kind of help us know the projects that are going on then.
I think that would also be good for, because the board needs to develop next year's work plan.
Yeah. That's what I'm
And so I think that would be helpful to see where we're at in items that were able to be completed for this year's work plan, and then what the board would like to see pushed to next year, that was not completed for whatever reason. Because there were some projects that couldn't be completed because of timing or staff or, you know, what have you. But that would also let the board, consider what sorts of things in each of those four areas we would like to see move forward in '24, because then that needs to go to council, here in the next few months for their approval.
Okay. Brenda can work toward that. Let's work toward finishing our business today. How's that?
So more discussion on this, just to clarify then. So what we're seeing on this is what we pre-approved budget-wise, a check that was actually cut, the corrections, and then a reimbursement.
Correct.
Okay,
Is that a motion to approve?
I just wanted to make sure, yeah. So I make a motion to approve. I don't even know what this would be called.
Check number 2519.
Check number 2519 reimbursement for the Sound Downtown pre-approved budget.
Is there a second?
Okay.
There, a second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. How about is the apparel one separate, or did that cover both of those checks? Okay. Oh, yeah, okay, it is both, okay, perfect. Okay, now we can review the paid invoices.
invoice that was tabled from last,
Yeah, I'm looking
Oh.
for it, 23.
Sorry, that was the check. Now we're in invoice, yep.
for the,
Invoice 2336.
1,056 and 30 cents.
Oh, so I skipped. This has already been paid, though.
So it was just the correction of the invoices, so originally it was invoice 2312, which is not a Sound Downtown invoice. And so the correction was invoice 2336 that was paid directly from the Business Improvement District.
Okay. So I make a motion to approve that correction for invoice 2336 being paid directly from BID funds.
Second.
Any discussion? Favor? Opposed? Alright, now we can move on to the review of the paid invoices.
So there is another spreadsheet in there that has all of the outgoing checks or payments, I guess they're all checks, from the Business Improvement District account and what those check numbers are, and those should all correlate to your general ledger. The ones highlighted in yellow are the most recent ones that we were discussing.
It's page 64. It was almost there.
Does help that they're numbered.
Highlighted ones are just the most recent
Just
ones.
the most
right?
recent ones that we had discussed that were reviewed last month, and then we're just going over them again. Sure to include all of the checks in the general ledger on the dates that they were issued. Just for reference with the bank statements. I did see that, in QuickBooks, the memo shows up, but when I print the report, they're missing on the first one, so I don't know. I will need to get our bookkeeping helper to help me figure out where those went.
It's in one spot, not the other.
Yeah.
That's how it works in
So-
QuickBooks.
I'm sure how that worked out.
Yeah. Okay, can I get a motion?
Are we making a motion to approve all of the invoices being reimbursed, or?
Well, these
This
are
is
being
not, this is
reimbursed,
the
yeah.
ones that were paid out of BID funds.
Gotcha.
So we're just
This is C.
approving the review of them.
The ask was to provide a sheet that had all of the invoices paid from BID funds in one sheet, so that the board could then reference the general ledger and go through and make sure that check 2501 went to K&G for the 15,643.
I don't know that you necessarily need to approve. these
No,
ones.
it's
Just
just
review.
as an action item.
This is just showing you
Yeah.
how things match.
So, Madam Chair, just for discussion, will this be, like, every meeting will have this and then highlighted will be the most recent ones or something like that? Is that, or is this just a one-time? This will be the
Certainly do that.
continuing.
It's
That must be
a
part of-
simple report to pull straight from QuickBooks.
Okay,
And it may help people who don't do accounting stuff all the time to, yeah.
stay, yeah.
Okay, anybody have any other discussion? All right, let's move on to review of invoices being reimbursed to BDO.
So this list are the items that we reviewed from last meeting. The majority of them were approved, but because there was a lot of questions and more detail being asked for on different items, I threw them all right back in here just so that we're all on the same page on what's being reimbursed versus what has already been paid out of the Business Improvement District. So the first four would actually, going forward, be under just a review of payments directly from the Business Improvement District.
So does Neon One, does that come out ACH or?
It does,
is that
but
a
it comes
check?
out of the BDL account.
Okay,
So only the QuickBooks comes directly out of the BID QuickBooks account, through the, BID bank account. I can just go through them. So Neon One, again, is the CRM system that we use, for everything, digital newsletters, registrations, sponsorships, volunteer hours, the whole kit and caboodle. So, that would be for, line item number 1 is for just June, again. And then, line 2 would be for the prepayment of July, August, and September, as we had discussed. Do you want to go through and approve?
Each
I
one.
mean, it's,
You
they've
might be
already
able
been
to do these four
approved.
together,
Yeah,
cause
Well, so you wouldn't do the QuickBook ones with
right.
the Neon One, because those are not requesting a reimbursement to BDL, those are coming directly out of your BID, so you don't wanna double pay them. So you could put the 2 Neon Ones together. And then if it was me, the motion I would do on 3 and 4 would be that you're approving the payment from the BID. You're not approving a reimbursement to BDL.
So I make a motion to approve Neon invoices for reimbursement to BDL.
Second.
any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Alright, let's move on to QuickBooks.
I make a motion to approve the invoices, direct payment from the BID account for 3 and 4, the Intuit QuickBooks, June and July, August, September quarter.
I will second that motion.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, how about the Meta?
So this is all the Facebook boosted posts. The only amount that it would need to be reimbursed would be the $46.30 for the Crazy Days ads. The remainder was part of the pre-approval for Sound Downtown and has already been paid.
What was the amount, 46? I'm trying to find that.
4630.
I move that we approve the reimbursement in the amount of 4630 to Meta for Crazy Days promotion.
Have a motion?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Alright, postal and copy.
So the invoice for postal and copy is for the labels, 9,000 labels that go to all 3 Hot Shots drive-throughs. They get put on the cups to advertise events. This invoice includes those as well as the posters for Hot August Hoops.
Do we have to approve each one of these individually, or can we review them all?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, if we could just,
Are we down to all approving the same type of
These
thing?
would all be
yeah.
for reimbursement, right?
Or at least let's keep going,
Well, to number 11 at
see
least.
where we get.
Yeah, can't we just review all these and then say,
Yeah, go ahead,
make a
Brenda.
motion to
Okay,
approve
so I'll just keep going through them.
4 through 6?
Northwest Media, this would be for our Q-Pins text blasts that go out to remind people to register, to attend all of our events as they are approved in the work plan for the Business Improvement District. Number 8 is Sherman's, so this would be hardware for the outfitting of the outlet boxes on the back of the stage in Brackenberry. Number 9 would be for King's Throne, and this is for the portable restrooms for Crazy Days. The reason there are 2 invoices on this one is we needed an ADA accessible restroom that also needed to be included in that. Number 10 is Staples, so this is the printer ink for the packets for the BID newsletter with all the information on how to access any of previous agendas, all the information that we've talked about, work plan items, etc. Number 11 is the staff hours and volunteer hours being reimbursed. And again, just to note that they are being paid at that $40.
That one might be a separate. Not a reimbursement, right? It's a
It would,
different kind of.
so it would be a payment to BDL for hours.
What do you think? Could we put that all in the same thing, or does it need to be a separate?
All of these are
Motion.
reimbursements, right?
Correct.
Okay, so when you make your motion, you can just omit that if you want, do it separately.
Yeah, I would say
They're
that,
all
so
reimbursements.
the reason that we individually list invoices is because we used to bulk them. And then the board frequently had questions about what all was included. And so then we moved to looking at each one individually, which kind of forces you as board members to really take note of what is being spent, which I feel is good. Could bulk your motion together, and I would just be specific in your motion that you are to identify all the ones that you're choosing to move to approve. If you want to do the BDL hours separately, I would just keep that one separate, and we can look at that separately, and you can approve that one separately.
Are you done explaining the hours part? Okay, perfect. Yes.
I make a motion to approve item 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 for reimbursement to BDL.
What about 5?
Oh,
That one was.
We
that one was already
did that. We already
done.
did that one.
Yeah,
Sorry, I was making other notes.
I second that motion.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, any discussion on the BDL hours or motion?
I make a motion to approve the BDL staff and volunteer hours for June 22 as presented.
I second that.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, let's move on to new invoices for review.
Alright, so the first invoice is for our work scholar. After talking with the executive team on the BDL board, it was discussed to just split it 50-50 for the semester versus having the BID pay for the entirety of it, because our work scholar will be doing both BDL and BID items, so it can either, oh no, I did put it on here. So the amount would be $130 towards the work scholar. And I can also, at the next meeting, they're finalizing the job description, because I did add Business Improvement District into the list of items that the work scholar would be a part of in order for the college to approve, to make sure that it adheres to all policy for LCSE.
And so is that 130 a monthly?
Yeah, what is the?
Nope, so this is for the entire
That's the
semester. Yeah. It would be a 17-week program. Race would be working on average about 10 hours a week. I believe we've set a schedule for Monday and Wednesday from 10 to 3.
So at this point, we're prepaying for that time, is that correct?
motion to approve the invoice Work Scholar at the amount of $130.
Second.
Any discussion?
Sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, how about Douglas Law?
Okay, so there's only one line item in here that pertains to the BID. And it looks like it was a consultation, between the BDL attorney and the city attorney, at the city attorney's request.
That was to discuss, doing lease agreements for trash cans.
Make a motion to approve the invoice for Douglas Law at $45.
Second that motion.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, BDL hours, volunteer hours.
July.
So these are for July.
Make a motion to approve the July 23 BDL staff hours and volunteer hours.
I'll second that motion.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, town hall meeting, September 6th.
So we originally had a date of August 8th, but we didn't really have a plan for what we wanted to present for the town hall meeting. So we moved it to September 6th into a lunch hour. So I wanted to present that to the board to see what kind of the expectations are, what budget we want to set for providing lunch. Do we want to have ratepayers come in and pay for their own lunch? What would you like that to look like so that I can get started on planning that?
September 6th, that's a Wednesday, is it not?
I believe so, yes.
So we did decide on a lunch hour. I think in order to get people there, we probably need to offer some kind of,
Yeah,
Agreed.
and you've got ratepayers coming, so in theory, asking them to pay on top of what they've already contributed.
Well, I don't look at it that way
Yeah,
because
I hear you, it
it's,
comes out of a different
when you're
place.
having a lunch,
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah, I get it, I
benefiting
get
the
it.
community, but we could supplement that.
Yeah, that's what I
We do that
thought.
in other organizations where maybe,
$10 lunch or something.
yeah,
well, you might get people to actually show up if they need to, like, pay $10 or
yep,
something.
and they can do it ahead of time and just walk in and say who they are. That'd be easy, and you can set that up on Neo, right?
Then you also have an estimated head count, so.
That would help. You gotta have an RSVP for the meal part, but not the attendance part. Anybody can show up, but
But if you
yeah,
want
that sounds
people,
great. You guys good with that?
I think so.
Absolutely, yeah,
And we can supplement the rest if it is more, but I think we
I
can
think that's
probably
great.
get close. Enough for money. Is that gonna be-
Yeah, on average, lunch meetings for other organizations range anywhere from 17 to 20.
Yeah.
So I think 10 would
Yeah.
be lower than what is normal, but also enough to
I'm gonna let, I'm sorry.
Do we have an agenda or talking points or
So my suggestion would be to
what are we doing at this lunch meeting?
open up the discussion again about the work plan, give an update on what has already been done, and then kind of flood into work plan for 2024 to get some of that feedback in, so that when the board meets, there's feedback from ratepayers already.
Right.
Versus, this is what we've come up with, and then we don't get another town hall meeting until fourth quarter, and at that point, a work plan, we're already behind.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the goal
Yeah,
there.
and ask to, yeah. Give their input on next year, yeah.
We have a better way to contact the ratepayers directly so they know, and then try to, I guess, not pressure them, but try to get them to make a decision, or commit to being there or not being there directly beforehand.
I have a very short list of emails, because they're not necessarily publicly available, and the ones that aren't supposed to be used for mailing purposes. I do send out a save the date, it's included in the newsletters, we have it on the website, there's different formats of it. And I kind of get the same response, which is scarce, I guess.
Right,
Yeah.
just let it done.
Yeah, we can't send a letter to the rate, I mean, is there a way we can?
We can send a letter to
I was just wondering, can we?
Yeah, notify them directly, it'd be nice,
Absolutely.
and plus in the letter, it might be nice to say, hey, for future reference, we could save some money if you send us your email
Yeah,
address.
right. So the list that I have with the addresses of the ratepayers, the last time we sent out the BID newsletter, we got about a quarter of them back in the mail. So that's where it was a little,
But their addresses for the ratepayers, because ratepayers still, I know that the city has to have them on
Yep.
file.
right, and that's the
For
same,
every
that's
that's
what
the
we
same
pull it
list
from.
that we
That's
use.
exactly where we pulled it from,
Yep.
is from the
Yeah.
cities.
But if it's not correct or updated,
Right.
yeah, it's tough.
So I mean, we can continue sending it out and paying for the postage on that. It does get pretty pricey.
Yeah, I know, that's,
Is there a
A
better
quarter
way
of
we
them
can
come
contact
back.
yeah.
Especially today.
Less expensive.
The postcards are a lot more cost effective, for sure, and it can be a save the date with the basic information.
Or QR
QR
code.
code, you know, with more information on the website. Again, a quarter of those will
Geographically,
still come back.
are the ratepayers I mean, geographically, how spread out is it?
It's
Yeah. I
Just
think
wonder if
at
you do
one
door
point,
hangers or just
yeah, we
something.
attempted
I was gonna
to,
say, that's the other idea would be
Yeah.
for, you know, the board, to go knock on doors.
Yeah,
I guess that's what I'm getting at is,
Mhm.
you know, direct contact.
Yeah.
Could you print something that had the ratepayer addresses on them and then
yeah,
split
absolutely.
them up by blocks or something, everybody
I
could
could
take a
knock
block.
on some doors.
some of the buildings that they might own, that put them in the district aren't necessarily.
Yeah,
Might not be
that could be part of it
Right.
too, is they're not
Right.
necessarily local or.
Yeah, and I think that is a chunk of it, is that
Yeah.
there are several owners and ratepayers that are not.
Or they're just completely disinvolved with the
Yeah.
property.
Of the ones that came back, I'm sorry to interrupt, I did take a few of those that I knew that they are there, and for whatever reason, it just wasn't delivered, so I hand delivered maybe 10 of them. But they still didn't show up to town hall meeting, so.
Right. I'm looking at what do we mail to the ratepayers every year? Maybe we pick this as twice a year, we do mailings and this is what we do the mailings for. And then that's when we figure out which ones bounce back and we let them know, hey, you're not getting yours because you don't have a correct address with us.
Right.
Which in turn could
Which
help
it could
with
also,
the-
like Doug had mentioned, it could also be an email. It's a lot easier to track who's opened it, when they opened it, did they actually receive it, did it bounce back immediately versus mail where I'm waiting almost a week and a half before they start coming back in.
It'd be nice if there was a way, especially with the intern, somebody to help, if you could send out the email if they do bounce back or,
Yeah.
you know,
Clean up the
and
list.
ask them, hey, give us your address too, so we can have correct, or a little survey of their
Yeah.
name and address. Be
When
sweet
you
if
say
you
Lewiston
send it.
mails out the bills, correct?
Yep.
Okay, can we stuff those envelopes? Something like a postcard or something in that bill
Just
envelope?
a 3.5 by
It
8.5.
happened before this, is
You
the
know.
thing.
Yeah, it won't happen before the town hall, I would imagine, but I bet you for future things, we
Yeah,
could plan around
absolutely.
I would
when
think
that cycle
because that bill's
happens.
gonna get to somebody
Yep.
regardless of the address that is
I can find out
liable
when that
for it. So
mailing
I'm just wondering if
happens.
that would be something
Um,
simple, just a colored.
Yeah,
like
we
you said,
print up a boatload of, three, 8.5 by 11.5 and cut them in thirds and then stuff them in an envelope to all our.
Is that something we can get to say, let us do?
Yes.
I would think that.
It's
have
just
the
a
right to
timing
do so.
thing, so it's just figuring out when, cause I know for like utility billing, I have to have something to them for it to go to, the company that we use that actually does, cause it's not people sitting in finance,
I
you know,
understand.
stuffing envelopes. So I have to have stuff to them like 3 weeks prior to a mailing going out, so I'm not sure what the, time schedule is for the ratepayer ones, but I can find out what that lead time is, and then we can plan from from there.
I don't know what other people's thoughts are, but I think that might want to be one of the most effective things. And in that first one, could say, can you please update your address, email, phone number, what have you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Here's the agenda, this is what we're working on, you're paying for this, if you would like to be involved, here's the stuff, please give us your information.
Yeah, tell them the why, for sure. Because,
Exactly.
yeah, we wanna save money, we wanna save ratepayer money by having more portable communications.
Correct. Yeah, you're being involved, you're paying for this, you should be involved in it, if you'd like to be involved, and we need contact information to do so.
And MailChimp's a lot cheaper than USPS.
So back to the budget for this, cause Katie will work on that part of
Sure.
it for us. We do need to approve some kind of a budget for this for Brenda, so. So far, we have kind of an agenda, and we have, the idea will pay for the meals over the $10, right?
Subsidize over $10.
There you go. But do we have a total budget or anything to help her out? Or what
Estimated
do you
head
need?
count.
Last time hardly anyone, I mean, really, it
Yeah,
was
but
already.
I think the lunch might be better attended personally, and that's why we moved it to that.
What were there at the last show? There was 7 ratepayers there, and there was approximately, 42 people?
It was less than that.
Yeah, I think it
Fair
was
amount of them from
closer
the
to
city.
30, but yeah.
There weren't that many of us from the city. I could sit at that table.
Or maybe we could budget a per person meal price or something to help her out, because we don't know a total budget for the food.
Oh, yeah.
That might be the easier way to do it.
Yeah.
Amount up to.
Yeah, because I know like if you go to a chamber lunch, it's $20 for the meal, right?
I was gonna say even up to $20, including any,
Like a soda or a water.
yeah, whatever, $20
So we
a
would
person.
subsidize up to $10 per
There you go.
plate, per person.
per person, per plate, per
You got this
attendee.
motion?
I'm asking at this
I think
point.
you just made the motion.
You just made the, you could turn that into a motion.
Okay, I motion that we subsidize up to $10 per plate for attendees for our next luncheon town hall meeting slated for September 6th, Wednesday from 11:30 till 1 o'clock.
I second that motion.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Opposed? Do you need any other monetary stuff for it?
I think the meal is the
That's the
majority
big one.
of it.
Okay.
I'll probably send out, instead of, we've done a postcard before, I think in the, stack of mail most people get a postcard, they're just doing this, but if it's in an actual envelope addressed similar to a bill. So I think I'm gonna go that route for the information for this town hall meeting and see what kind of response we get from that. One, it's a lot cheaper than the alternative, and then
So does she need approval for that budget stuff out, or is that just part of the
think that would just be
administration, I
administrative
think, so?
cost. I'll get you an updated list from finance.
perfect, thank you.
Okay, let's move on to the 2023 work plan budget.
So this is so this is what's on your guys' list every time. Just kind of going through the different items and getting updates from Brenda.
Area 1.
There is, I think for area 1, we were working on that list of properties. I did get back like a testing website to make sure that it works, and so we're working out some of the glitches on agents being able to actually put in their properties, what it looks like on the consumer side, and making sure that they drop off after a certain amount of time, just kind of working through some of those glitches. It's like it'll be fairly easy, it's just a simple login to kind of their own account. They can see all the listings that they put in there and all the information, when it's going to drop off the website, and then an option for a renewal to, renew it for another 30 days, so. kind of where we're at on that specific project.
And I think that's actually an area 3, not an area 1.
Let me be sure.
Yeah, website for properties for sale or lease in the district.
Yeah. Murals are kind of at a halt right now, going into fall and kind of the colder months. It makes it really difficult to do the testing for any of the historic buildings to make sure that the brick is viable to be coated and then painted so that it's not gonna slough off. So we do have to wait until guarantee that it'll stay fairly warm. I think at this point in the year, it's anyone's guess. It could snow tomorrow, it could be 106. So instead of paying somebody to come out and do that work, and not knowing if they're actually gonna be able to take the correct samples from buildings that we're looking at for murals, and just postpone that until next year.
Area 2?
Neighborhood improvements, really not an update there. I've kind of left it in the hands of Tim Barker with Parks and Rec on Brackenberry improvements. I know we've run into a couple issues on being able to dig the posts and interfering with the lines that Avista has underneath the cement. So making sure that we have an updated infrastructure map so that we are not being held liable for any damage to those lines in Brackenberry. Now that Sound Downtown is over, it's a little bit easier to kind of schedule something like that out where they can actually do a small test to see where to dig and put those permanent posts.
There's nothing you need on that though today, okay.
I had sent out several emails and phone calls for electrical contractors, and I have not received any bids back necessarily. I did get a couple contractors that were interested in doing the work, but they are out until about spring, so that's kind of where we're at on there. I did ask for them to send in bids anyway, so we could have an idea of what the cost would be, knowing that because of their schedule, the bid would, what's the word, expire after 30 days, but just more of an idea of what we're looking at of what that payment would be. For the planters, the issue that we're having is one, construction, being able to have a water truck that goes down Main outside of any delivery hours, and at times being down to one lane, as well as coordinating the volunteers at the same time that we have the water truck is a little bit of an issue. Now that irrigation water is readily available, it's a little easier to ask for that. So we're gonna try to either coordinate a time that we can just do water truck and just fill all of them with water, and then do the actual plant distribution on a separate set of weekends. Because it doesn't look like those two will really line up together, and we don't want plants in there before the water's in there, so. Again, just with the sunshades, any Brackenberry improvements, that's kind of in the hands of Parks and Rec right now.
And what about the wayfinding signage?
Yeah, I'm just getting to that second page. For wayfinding, so we have a map where we have our design committee putting pins on where all the current signage is, as well as lights, planters, benches, all of the, I guess, inventory, if you will, on a map that we can easily access and be able to edit. So once those are all done, then we can create an ask for all the signage that we're gonna need for downtown, what that looks like, and be able to place an order or get pricing based on the needs for that. As part of the wayfinding, I did speak with the mayor about parking. It's a constant issue, it's always gonna be an issue, and it was proposed to look into parking meters for downtown versus trying to find a staff member to go and actually physically write tickets or monitor the 3-hour parking. So I have two companies right now that are looking to give us a bid for those parking meters. I have no knowledge of what those cost. The only thing I know is that no infrastructure is needed, so we can bolt those into the sidewalks where they need to go. Do, maybe one block as a tester, much like we did the diagonal parking, and see how it goes, see kind of what the hiccups are there, what, if there are any setbacks, if they work. And then, as a solution to, perception issue. So that's, something I've had several business owners, email or call or come in and talk to me about, and what are we doing? And the mayor's really, focused on finding a viable solution for that, so.
So hypothetically, with a parking meter, for example, if we were to pay for that install, the funds that those meters will bring in, where would that money go hypothetically? Would that go back against the install cost? Would the city take it to oversee maintenance and damage, what have you? Have we thought through that end of it yet or not?
I haven't gotten quite that far. We need to figure out what the cost of the actual physical meter is first to see if it's even, much like the crosswalk beacons. Everyone was like, oh, that's a great idea, and then they're, $30,000 to just get the hardware, and
Right.
that's not installation, so then we kind of backed up there. So same kind of process for the meters. We wanted to see what the cost would be to get the physical meter itself, and then the labor, and then see if the BID even has the available finances to do a portion of that. I don't think the business improvement district should necessarily pay for the entirety of the project because of future maintenance costs, but it could be something that we could, or that the board could essentially kick off and do partner with a cost that is very black and white. So for the physical meters, we're paying for this, and then it's done that way. If
The
the
second half
BID,
of that is just portion of the revenue to
Yeah,
come
where's
back.
the revenue go?
And then
Does
the portion of
does that
revenue
come
come
back
back
to
to
downtown
BID.
improvements?
That's exactly where I was
Yeah,
going with
or
that.
does it
is
go to the
if
city?
That gets agreed, then,
You know.
if we pay a portion of it and everybody else agrees, and that those funds in some way, shape, or form should come back to BID or BLD, should come back to downtown.
Might have to cover somebody actually
to
enforcing the
maintain it.
rules,
Yeah.
because if nobody's getting a ticket for an expired meter, then there's,
I look at it as getting the business owners off the street
yeah.
and park where they should be.
So one topic of discussion that came up during this, it was, so let's say you have a business owner that constantly parks on the street, and now there's a meter, and to them, it's like, okay, well, I'll just continue to pay for the meter, then at least there's money coming in.
Yep,
Absolutely.
So,
exactly.
They
might not,
change their mind
might
after
not
a while.
necessarily,
As long
fix
as
it
it's
immediately,
reductions,
but I think after time, once they see that bill come through of how much they paid just to park in front of their building, I think that'll help
Yeah, yeah.
change the minds of those business owners that are parking.
And with the new parking meters are so simple,
Yeah,
They might have photo enforcement for all I know.
right?
you know.
I think there was discussion of
I
having
think they do.
They do have, depends on how high a meter you purchase, but
Yeah.
they do have meters that actually they'll read a license plate, they'll scan.
Yeah. A code enforcement, not necessarily officer, but a personnel, so they wouldn't necessarily be sworn in, like our officers are, but someone that can just go and it's very easy to see. They're similar to the ones, in Boise. You can see a red,
Yeah.
light or a red, whatever it is, and you know that you have to pay for that spot,
Well,
so.
in summertime, we also have officers downtown that are bicycle
Yeah.
officers, so that's kind of a no-brainer
Yeah.
for that as well as a side, if, they're not having to deal with something right there in front of them as they tour.
Yeah,
Yeah, because the city does get the benefit of the ticket.
That is correct.
Yeah.
right.
So that covers the
Income
enforcement.
generator there, that covers the enforcement
Right.
from, whether.
Provided there's a willing.
Correct.
Any more discussion on area 2? We're gonna move on to area 3.
Okay, so this is where the website for the property listings would be. And I did get some more information on the cost of banners for the swag lines and the hardware that's included on that. I have a few local companies bidding those out to see what type of sign we can get from them, the quality of the sign. We don't wanna pay for a, $150 swag line banner and then have it not be legible or have the material not be able to be stored to where we can use it year after year with just generic information for events that happen annually. So I'm getting information on that as well. We're kind of wrapping up our testimonials and video clips for our $5 Can Change Your Community campaign. We've had hopefully we'll have business owners approve the bloopers on those because they're hilarious. Having them try to be really serious about, well, if $5 comes into my business, I go and then there's one blooper in specific that you hear in the background and it's, we go to the liquor store and they're a bar, so it made sense, but out of context, when you hear that clip, it's like, wait, where do you go with that $5? So making sure that we're capitalizing on some of these really fun testimonials of business owners that are really excited to share what it means to shop locally. Hopefully we'll have a couple clips ready for Plaid Friday, which is our push for, again, shopping local. It's our local version of Black Friday, and then the next day is Small Business Saturday. So we're hoping to have some of those videos ready for that, for the month of November, to be able to highlight some of those businesses. As part of that, we've also done a business spotlight in the newsletter each month. Next year, we are offering, we just kind of choose them at random based on BDL partnership. Next year, we're gonna offer, if they want to guarantee a spot in the newsletter for that business spotlight, they can purchase that space. That would go, again, to the cost of sending those out and putting.
All right. Any discussion on that?
One quick question on the maps. Have we thought about putting something at town square? Is it viable to put, say, a kiosk similar to a big shopping mall? You walk into any entrance in a big shopping mall and they have a map of where everything's at, what floor, so on and so forth. Something like that maybe at town square. Is there room? Is it something that we could possibly look at doing where a person can see, or we could pinpoint them there with whatever it takes, so it's not familiar with Lewiston, they can see all the businesses and what exactly they are and offer? Is that a reach?
We've discussed a directory of sorts, very similar to that. So right now, the process with that is trying to figure out the most cost-effective way to update those. If they're a more static display, then making sure that the correct information is on there versus like a screen that we can put behind some type of a post, and then that can be taken care of, the information can be edited remotely, would be a lot easier. And the locations for that were proposed were D Street parking, or the Library Tribune parking, Brackenberry Square, and then potentially further east on Main, depending on
I don't want to take everybody's time if it's been
how that
discussed.
shapes out. But yes, we are looking into that.
Yeah.
It was on the agenda for quite a while.
Yeah, and then I actually saw one of those wayfinders in Tampa. It was really cool, but it's definitely, it's something that, it's a lot easier to update than going and getting something printed and,
Yep.
Every time a business comes or goes. That's
What did happen with that? I think the last it was, we were going to maybe partner with the Tribune.
Potentially. So I know that we had talked.
We discussed it. It's a pretty, as far as what those wayfinders are, they're pretty specific to, finding the businesses and getting to those businesses. And they're pretty simplified. So there's definitely ways you could do it.
And they're large enough, a lot of big cities, they have advertising, they charge advertising on that in a separate spot, which helps offset the cost of the maintenance of that.
Right. Putting all it together, just like the meters, you can buy the product, but who's gonna take care of it?
Exactly.
Was that why it kind of fell off the radars, cause the cost was more than we wanted to do? I can't remember.
The SUFA signs were too much of a cost, and to where once the end of the BID comes around, who is then taking care of that?
Take care of them afterwards.
Yeah, and the ones I saw, I mean, they're elaborate. I mean, you could put up a simple screen with a
Frame.
static display and a frame really cheap.
Yeah.
It was, you know, as long as it was protected,
Right.
and had a power source. But, you know, the one I saw, I mean, it was basically your phone and with Google Maps on it,
Interactive, you
5
can see
feet
where
tall
you're
and
at. Yeah.
2 feet wide, you know, and so, I mean, it's all touch screen and, you know, you're Googling, you know, restaurants. You know, basically, it's just a big Google
Yeah.
screen.
I'm just wondering where Lewiston Tribune, for example, where they aren't advertising, might be able to talk to Tribune to actually put one out, pay for it, and then they can get the revenue and take care of it from advertising dollars. It would be to our benefit, and we could subsidize part of that. But then that would cure the problem of, say, in 3 years, we're no longer here, that it's still viable, still works for the community, still works for, you know, the businesses from that standpoint. I know that they're involved in the big reader boards. I know what it costs for a 15-second spot on all those new boards that are going around Lewiston and Clarkson. There's 7 of them I think the Tribune has right now. One's one in behind
There's
George's
like,
Lock.
I know.
And then, yeah, George's Lock and Key, the one that, I don't know if Denny and them come to terms on that.
That's actually
59.
the state regs, where like literally within feet of not being able to do that, so. So unfortunately.
Okay, so they're still working on that, and, any other discussion on area 3? Let's move to area 4.
So, the next BID newsletter, will go out in a couple weeks. I just need to finalize, some links on there, the QR codes that go on that. Part of the BDL newsletter does include BID information, the highlight to the historic buildings, where to access, any of the agendas, meeting minutes, financials, all of that. So, that will be, the BDL newsletter goes out today. And then, like I mentioned before, we will have a work scholar from LCSC, who will be helping with a portion of, the BID, getting to learn what the district is, how it runs, and, being able to have a second set of hands and eyes on things, so.
Right, any discussion on area 4? All right, let's talk about a 2024 work plan.
So I included in your guys' packet, the 23 scope of work and work plan items. So you can, you know, kind of see what, this current year's, activities were as determined by the board last year and the budget set forth for each of those areas. And then there's also the strategic plan that you were working on earlier in this year. And so really, and we can discuss, or this is also something that can be homework. The idea being it's time for us to start considering what you want to put on the 24 work plan so that that can be fleshed out and Brenda can present that to council for approval. So I wanted to make sure that you had both of these items. You know, the areas don't change, the areas are the same because those are set forth by the ordinance and the resolution. The activities you do with inside those areas is what you have the power to determine. So, you know, our meeting's running kind of long today. I don't know if we necessarily want to do a lot of this talking now, but I would encourage the board, and I can send this out to the full board again separately with the reminder that these are the areas, these are what we've talked about in the past, and you guys need to come with ideas. And then we can also have, this will be part of that discussion items at the town hall, and then we can bring that information to the meeting in September. You guys can kind of flesh everything out.
And I think that's, the next one will be like the day after the town hall meeting, so.
Yeah, so I would put probably the same items on the actual agenda because that has to go out beforehand. And then we would just bring, I guess my idea for how you collect that information is you have like whiteboard, sticky notes, that kind of stuff. We bring all of that back, you guys consume all of that information and we start putting things in areas.
Start.
Much
at
like
the
we did
next
when we
meeting.
did strategic plan, and I stood up there with the board and we just did
Oh, yeah.
area by
We'll have-
area and you guys just shot ideas.
This time we won't have, but if you send that out to everybody and tell them to start thinking about it for the
Yep.
next meeting, we're gonna discuss it, earmark an extra half an hour, and we're gonna have the ratepayers information from the town hall meeting